All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo Rice, and my correspondent.
Simone Cherie.
Kyle Andrew.
And, all right, so as y'all see, Kyle is with us, and Derek should be on momentarily. So the whole Blend family is together today because that's how much stuff is going on in the world today that needs to be sorted out. I had to call it the big guns and get the whole family together today. So y'all know Derek, he'll come running in probably 3 or 4 minutes later. So we'll just add him in. So much is going on in the world, and today we're going to cover all kinds of things from, yes, Will and Jada, to reparations that actually happened in certain places, to all kinds of stuff. But that's not my job. That's Simone's job. So, Simone, tell us what's on the rundown for today.
So we're going to talk about a new development in Georgia as of yesterday where Governor Kemp is suing, essentially suing Atlanta, but suing in particular Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, a good friend of mine, Councilman Andre Dickens, and a list of other folks over mandating masks. So even though he's urging folks to wear masks, Atlanta and a couple of other locations actually have been mandating that we wear masks. And Governor Kemp is suing, which is a crazy thing to think about dynamically. So I think we should talk about that a little bit. We can talk a little bit more about COVID and the state of COVID and school reopenings, death rates, and whether or not this curve will ever flatten. I think we should kind of give people an update on COVID there. And we're still in the middle of an election cycle, so I have an update on those elections and on the August 11th runoff that we want everyone to participate in. And if we have time, we can talk a little bit about anti-racism. I think Double R mentioned one of the things he wanted to bring up was all this conversation. If you've checked your email in the last 3 months, you've gotten an email from every single company you've ever bought anything from that telling you what they're going to do about Black Lives Matter and what they're going to do about racism. So I think he definitely wanted us to get into what anti-racism means and how we can flush out that discussion. So I think that's something important for us. And then Will and Jada, we didn't get a chance to talk about, even though this broke, I guess almost 2 weeks ago now. We haven't got a chance to talk about it, and I know there's a lot of strong opinions about it, so we should also dive into that too.
All right, where do you want to start?
Let's just start with COVID. Let's start with health matters first. So as I said, Governor Kemp is suing the city of Atlanta for requiring that people wear masks. So on Friday, he actually addressed the public and urged people to wear masks. However, his call for face coverings is coming 2 days after he essentially prevented cities from enforcing their own rules to kind of prevent the spread. So he told leaders that they can use their connections with the media to build support for wearing masks, but he basically is suing because they are mandating it. He said it's got to be about the community defeating the virus, not the government defeating the virus. He says that we need younger Georgians to recognize the importance of following this guidance. And so he issued that executive order essentially to prevent them from implementing their own mask mandates, because even though we've got an executive order to be safe and to avoid large gatherings, there is no mandate about wearing that masks. He claims that, it's well-intentioned, but it's well-informed. And so he believes that at this point, the mask debate is becoming one that's political. So he sued Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. He sued other members of the Atlanta City Council and basically says that, we can't have mandates because it's essentially sending a message about things that people aren't as concerned about if they're not willing to enforce it on their own. He says this is about freedom and it's about liberty. And, given the economic hardship, we really don't need to be mandating that people wear masks. So I don't know, there are a lot of businesses who have their own mask mandates, like Target and CVS and Kroger. I know a bunch of other places that said, well, you're going to wear masks here. But governors suing a city is not a common occurrence. Now, Governor Kemp has been sued a couple of times, but actually I think he was sued individually back in 2018 with regard to voter suppression. But it's very rare for people, let alone a whole body, to be sued by another government body that was different. So this is a rare occurrence. And it's like, so who do you think people are listening to? Do you think that people are really frustrated with having to wear masks? Do you think that they're frustrated with the fact that masks aren't enforced? Like, what kind of message does it send if the governor's here and then local officials are over here?
I think there's definitely a group of people that are for sure behind Governor Kemp, because people really don't like wearing masks in public. Like when grocery store associates or Target associates, when they ask customers to wear masks, they refuse. And you'll see videos and stuff like that on Twitter and YouTube where they just basically throw temper tantrums because they don't want to wear a mask.
The Karen
But when exactly. But I feel like people should take it more seriously, because it's the mayor of Atlanta and her son and her husband both tested positive. And I don't understand why we're against wearing masks at this point and why we're suing this. Actually, the mayor of Savannah, he said that in his city, regardless of what Kemp says, in his city, you are required to wear a mask. So I guess he's going to get sued next.
Yeah, he may. What do you think, Ricardo?
So,
I'm more concerned about this, about the optics of this. I'm getting past the coronavirus. So not even a week ago, Felicia Moore is the president of what, city council? Felicia and Keisha, I don't want to say they got into it, but it turned into a street brawl, verbally. Because Keisha was making comments about the Wendy, and she said something to the extent of, we didn't touch that area or something because city council said not to, so that's why we didn't touch it. So they interviewed Felicia, and Felicia was like, well, we didn't tell her that because she didn't ask us, and Keisha needs to keep my name out her mouth. What is this, a street? What are y'all, hood helpers? What is happening right now? And those are her exact words. I watched the interview. Felicia literally said, Keisha needs to keep my name out her mouth. What is this, a street brawl? What are we, hood chicks now? What is happening right now?
Wow.
Then you shifted. You got Keisha and Brian going at it. And now Brian's going after, and if you ever notice, I don't remember his name, the mayor of Savannah and Keisha seem to be very close. So even when Kemp made the decision to reopen and he didn't consult either one of them, they kind of got together and kind of put out statements together. So optics-wise, first of all, you got the two main chicks with, like I said, Felicia and Keisha, who are in charge of stuff at the city levels going at it, look like two hood chicks. And then optics-wise, you got white folks over here, which is Kemp saying, we don't want to do X, Y, Z. And then you got black folks over here, which is Keisha and the mayor of Savannah saying, what we're going to do, we want to do, and we don't care how you feel about it. It's just not a good look for Georgia in general. I mean, I'm ready to pack up my bag and move because it's tacky.
Sure.
I don't operate like that, so I don't want to be represented like that. If we're going to do something, it needs to be on one page, and it needs to stop looking like a street fight, because that's what it looks like now. Kemp swings, Keisha swings. Keisha swings, Kemp swings. It's pathetic. People are dying. Make a decision. Unified decision, and let's do what we got to do. I'm not going to lie. I don't like wearing a mask. It's annoying. When I go in the grocery store, I feel like I'm in a third world country because people are shopping the produce aisle with masks on. It drives me up a wall. I don't like it, so I really don't leave my house that much as a result of it. But I get it. But I also get the confusion because, like me and Kyle were saying before you got on, Simone, we know, both of us know people who've had it and recovered, and the only thing they really went through was like 2 weeks of maybe some turmoil. And that turmoil wasn't anything extreme. It was just uncomfortability. Then on the other side, we've known some people who have died from it. So it's kind of confusing because it really boils down to you don't know how it's going to affect you if you get it. You may be fine. You may end up on a ventilator. Because now I think about it, one of my friends ended up on a ventilator. She was older, but she ended up on a ventilator. So you just don't know. And it's like, you telling me to wear a mask every day is like, why? Because I got friends that haven't gotten it recovered. It's no worse than the flu. I get it. So I understand it from both sides. It's all just annoying. And when you have leadership that is weak and having street fight, it doesn't make anything any better. So
I agree.
I don't know.
Let me provide a quick update really quick because Georgia, so today the Center for Public Integrity released a report. It's one of the biggest COVID reports that we've had at least since June and July have kind of started to identify what the red zone is. So they identified 18 states that are in like a COVID red zone where the rates are the highest and the death tolls are the highest, and where the spread does not seem to be flattening. And Georgia is one of 18 states in that zone. Nevada's in there, Texas is in there, Louisiana, Florida. If you didn't know, Texas and Florida also rolled back some of the reopening plans because of seeing these numbers and just watching the cases spike. And Arizona's had a similar situation as well. So our councilman, Andre Dickens, talked about the fact that in those states where masks are mandatory, they're seeing a reduction. They're seeing a reduction in as quick as 5 days in terms of the number of cases. But that's not being observed in other states. And right now in Georgia, there's been 3,100 deaths that are due to COVID, 14,000 hospitalizations, 131,000 confirmed cases. On a county basis, it's probably what you'd expect. Fulton, DeKalb, Gwinnett have the biggest cases of COVID right now. And Carroll County actually has quite a bit.
So apparently in Texas and Arizona, morgues are filling up the hardest. Morgues are filling up in the hardest hit areas, and officials are bringing in coolers and refrigerated trailers to store bodies. So Texas and Arizona, it's real in
It's
those
a
areas.
hot mess.
And
Yeah.
I will say, as somebody that was in Florida this past weekend, and my sister bribed me into going to Clearwater Beach, and was like, "Oh yes, this is a private little beach. We'll be good." And me and the kids was like, "No, we don't want to go. It's like COVID. It's real. We're in Florida." She was like, "No, we're good."
Yeah.
But she's a nurse, so she had overstock stuff. We get to the beach, and this beach is overrun with people. And it's one of those nice beaches that has like a little cabana, cabins and stuff. And this beach is overrun with people without masks. And I'm just like, wow. And I mean, from eye, all you see is people just having a ball with no mask on. It was crazy. I was like,
So I'm gonna ask you a question. Do you feel the need to be tested now that you've been? Is he still talking? He muted himself.
I'll answer that while Ricardo looks at the chat and stuff. I definitely would love to be tested, but I'm really concerned about these tests. So I saw a couple of videos where there was it's like a long swab basically, and it goes up your nose. That makes me very
uncomfortable.
And I'm not excited about that idea.
And it's just like, it like, I don't know how far it goes, but it's about this long. And when it's up your nose, you can only see about this much of it. So I'm like, why do you have to poke my brain?
Basically, it has to tickle, I think, the space between your nose and your brain. And
that might be why a lot of people don't want to get tested, because it looks so uncomfortable. Like,
I think so too.
I do want to get tested, but I'm not just gonna go and let somebody poke my nose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm a little unsure about it. I do have a friend who got tested. Actually, I have a friend who was positive and has been quarantined for 14 days and has now tested negative. And they allowed her, I guess, where she got tested, to do it herself. So she said she made sure not to be too rough on herself. So I know it's avoidable, like the pain is avoidable, but it still just makes me very uncomfortable that that's the case. I would just kind of say about this whole situation, though, that we're in a climate in which everything is political. Like that's kind of been the case for a while, but now it's very clear everything is political. Even a global pandemic that none of us asked for. Democrats didn't ask for it. Republicans didn't ask for it. You know, normally in times of national crises, America pats itself on the back for coming together and, you know, working across the aisle and, you know, just kind of being a unified front. And it just goes to show this is Trump's America. There is no unity. There will be no unity in Trump's America. There will be everything will have an angle. Everything will be political. And I believe when it's coming from the top, it is impossible to squash at the bottom. I just don't think that's going to happen. So if he is giving press conferences talking about states being, you know, ridiculous and being negative about it, then there's just no way that we can unify on a ground level. I just don't think that we can. So,
I mean, it's a hot mess. I don't understand how we got here, and it's hot mess. Hold on, I'm trying to get Derek in.
Go ahead. I was going to say, can we go into the runoffs a little bit while we have a couple of minutes? Because I know we're going to get into entertainment in a sec. But so Georgia's runoff election is on August 11th. Okay. And if people don't know what that was, so Georgia's primaries, we had some of the biggest numbers we ever had as a state. And the primary elections are incredibly important. It was not just the presidential preference primary, but it was like all of the other races and the judges and the sheriffs and all the seats that I talk so much about and preach so much about that are very important. And anybody who did not get over 50% during the June primaries is in this August runoff, including our friend, actually, we've had a couple of candidates. Yes, but we've had a couple of candidates that I think have been on the show or close to the show whose races have ended in the runoff. So like Maya Dillard-Smith is not in the runoff, but her race is, and there's a lot of other seats that are going to be in the runoff on August 11th. So if you voted for the primaries, or if you're eligible to vote for the primaries, do vote again on August 11th. Try to get an absentee ballot if you can, because we all know what happened in June. And the primaries were definitely blamed for being like a reason why COVID spiked back up in Georgia. Like there was a lot of different, I guess a lot of different scapegoats between like the protests and other things going on, but there were a lot of people gathered when we voted. Even in the place that I voted, you could not social distance per se. So there was a lot of that. And for all we know, that did have a lot to do with the cases spiking back up. So if you can vote by absentee, do vote absentee, but know that August 11th is an election as well in the state of Georgia, and obviously November is an election. So I would just point out as well too that there's a lot of swing seats. There's a lot of swing seats coming up this November in the state of Georgia for state Congress and for state House that are usually not swings. They're usually pretty clearly one line or the other. And on the federal level, that's the case too. So that's I think goes to show that people are out here and that they want to vote. If you are eligible to vote, because a lot of people aren't, you just definitely want to make sure that you do that. That'd be my last.
Yeah.
That's my last little PSA.
I'm concerned. Like I'm going to say that I'm concerned. And me and Derek talked about this yesterday when we were talking vaguely. You know, my fear is that Trump supporters are smart. They don't say a lot. They'll get into it. Once they had enough, they go away. They wait till November, and then they all show up strong. Like, they understand the dynamic and the importance of voting. So I feel like they're all going into retreat now because they're preparing to actually turn out and vote and make sure that this idiot stays in office come November. So I'm really concerned about that because, like I said, that's how they do things. They understand the power of voting. They understand what it means to vote. And I feel like we're out here doing all of this. And by the time we get to November, the momentum will be gone and we will be right back to square one. That's my fear right now at this point because that's just how they do. I'm really concerned about this. And, you know, you look at the poll numbers, and I think I read an article that was saying before Trump won, the polls were saying he was not going to win X, Y, Z, and we all know how that turned out. So you really can't lend on polls. So I'm just like, I don't know. I fear the worst.
They said last night. If they said if
I think you might be having an audio issue.
Yeah, Ricardo, I can't hear you. I think you're on phone audio or something because you don't even have a little microphone.
He's just talking.
I can't hear you. Can you hear us? He can't hear us, I guess, either. I can't tell.
We can't hear you.
Nope. He dialed it on his phone, I guess, from what I can tell.
Hello?
I'm still here.
Okay. Ricardo, you're still muted. You got the little red mute thing.
Okay, so
can you hear me?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. We're going to talk a little bit more about the election piece, but so Double R, since you just joined, can you tell us a little bit about what you think as far as COVID voting and safety, not just voting, but safety? So like we were talking about the elections a little bit, and I mentioned when I voted in June that it was definitely no social distancing going on. So
it was the same thing. When
yeah.
I voted right before I moved, and it was a lot of people. Surprisingly, it wasn't enough people. Like you would think that it would be those lines down the street, and it would be a lot of people outside. It was a lot of people because of where they was doing it, not because a lot of people showed up. And I think it's going to be worse now because people got to show up. And with that many people in the same place, there is no social distancing on the sidewalk.
We haven't even brought this up as well, but like President Trump deciding that we can't do mail-in ballots when that's how he votes and that's how a lot of people vote all the time. Like you would think if there's no other time we have mandatory mail-in ballots, it would be now. But again, everything is political. And he has even said, or his officials have been quoted saying that they believe that will give Democrats way too much, it'll be way too enabling for Democratic voters. It'll turn out way more than normal if they could vote by mail. And it's like, this is so crazy that they would even admit, I mean, it's true, but the fact that they would admit that and say, well, no voting by mail because that would just make everything
that alone in itself should be a wake-up call. Yeah.
Like too many Democrats will vote and we'll lose. That sounds,
right.
It don't even sound smart to say out loud. But
not at all.
I don't know if y'all seen the Mary Trump interview last night. Like she kind of put a lot of this stuff in perspective. Like these things are happening for a reason. Like they said last night that if an election had to happen today, Trump would lose one of the biggest margins in history.
That's true.
And it's bad. So of course you want to impede on people's ability to get out or ability to send in their ballot, because more people would want to send in their ballot because of COVID than would want to go outside.
Absolutely. And more people, I think, are apt to vote by mail in general, too, just because, again, those when you have to go somewhere to vote, especially if you have a job, we don't get free paid holidays.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So people a lot of times will not do it, or the things will come up. Somebody will get sick, or the kid's acting funny. I can't, and then they don't vote at all. So if you let people vote by mail, they will definitely vote. One thing that's also important about this conversation before we move on too is that the Supreme Court just struck down the ability for felons to vote in Florida. So Florida passed Amendment 4 a couple of years ago, and obviously this is an important issue to me, but because 1 out of 6 people in Florida has a felony and cannot vote, and over half of those people are Black, which is, it's a disparate number, and it exists in pretty much every state, including Georgia. But Florida passed that amendment, which meant that, listen, if you've paid your debt to society, you can rejoin society. What a crazy idea. If you've finished your sentence, you can get your vote back, which shouldn't have taken an amendment to do, but they passed it. And now they had barriers of implementing it, because I guess there's been such a poor job of keeping track of who's done with their sentence and who's done with their time that it became a logistical nightmare to do. So it got kicked up to the Supreme Court because, ACLU and other sorts of activists were like, we're not having it. We passed the amendment. We followed the rules. You need to let people vote. Went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court just struck it down and left those barriers in place. So at this point, if you're in Florida and you got a record and you know that you're eligible to vote, you have to go through a pretty painstaking process to get your vote back. It's not enough that you finish your sentence. You have to actually go through this whole process, and that's going to, again, impede people in the same way that a lot of eligible voters don't vote, because there's a process involved that's very lengthy and difficult. And if signatures don't match or addresses don't match, all of those hurdles exist now for that group of people. So it's but the Supreme Court kicking that down right now when, our president is talking about the fact that we don't want to open up participation to just anybody with a mailbox. It feels like a conspiracy. It feels like all these different forces coming together to try to make sure that November is as narrow participating as possible. And it's
feel like 2001, don't it?
But I got a question though.
Yeah.
So my question about this. For some reason my phone is kicking me out, and I realize y'all can keep going. I just can't hear anything. So I don't know why my phone keeps kicking me out. I don't know what that's about. But whatever. I'm glad y'all having so much fun at my expense. I digress. So I guess my question is, did we open a portal when we allowed Kemp to outright steal this election in Georgia? I'm starting to feel like we opened a portal when we did that, because when we did that, we kind of let him say, we saw all the elements. He blatantly did it right in front of us, and we kind of let it ride. So I feel like now when it comes to this voting thing, they just kind of feel like, okay, we kind of invest with this thing. Remember we got Kemp voted, and we did it outright. We didn't make him step down. He was over the voting booth. Nobody made a big deal about it long term. We got away with it. So maybe we should just keep doing it, because we clearly can get away with it. I'm starting to feel like that's what happened when we let that happen in Georgia. I really do. Because now, and even going into November, my desire was at this point, some group of individuals who had a vested interest and understood the voting process would have stepped up and really started putting the hammer down on Georgia about not having a repeat of the primary. I'm still not seeing it, and we're fastly almost out of July. So I'm really concerned.
It's there. Kemp was sued many, many times by lots of different groups, and then Fair Fight Action, which is Stacey Abrams' organization, it has a C3 and a C4. They're very active, and they're raising money all the time to try to make sure that elections are fair. In fact, they're part of the reason why there was so much, why there was lawsuits with the results of our primary that are still being fought in court, because they were out there as legal observers and poll watchers, catching all the things, some of which I observed myself and reported very promptly. That, hey, these ballots aren't right and stuff like that. They're out there. The question is more so okay, as these lawsuits go on, how can we get more media coverage, right? How can we get more media around it? Because again, that's where most people are spending their time. So we need way more coverage on those stories. And we also need, I think, we need laws that make what the people want more important than, like right now, there's such a power right now where I feel like the judiciary gets so much of the final say. These lawsuits go on, but just because Kemp could be totally bankrupt, he could be financially insolvent, but he was elected as governor, and that doesn't change anything. The laws that can make someone step down who's been elected by the people, those are very stringent laws. And being being, you know, found to be completely corrupt doesn't necessarily mean you have to leave your office. Most people do, at least traditionally in the past, you know, they
He's not
resign.
gonna do it.
Yeah,
He's not gonna do it.
yeah.
To answer
Those
your
classy
question,
resignations, those aren't happening.
yeah, to answer your question, like we Georgia the cheat code. I've always said, and me and you talked about this before, like Georgia is one of those places that either be like, it'll be the example. Every time something happens, the Kemp thing happened. And then right after that, it happened in Florida. Like even that law in Florida, like that's not like a new thing. They've been trying to fight this for a while, but now the Supreme Court just is like, nah, we good on that. Imagine what that does to 500,000 people that can't vote now, or
Exactly.
1 million people that can't vote now. And we all know Florida is one of them states. Just like Georgia is one of them states that if people actually turn out, it could change an election.
Oh yeah, Florida's so important, which is why I feel like this is such a direct cripple of this election coming up here in November, because you know Florida's an important state. When you saw Florida go, you see Florida go in one direction, you know, Florida, a couple other states as well, you kind of start painting the picture like, okay, if Florida's this way, you know, what does that mean as far as this election? So yeah. It's just, again, I just think everybody has to stay vigilant. I just feel like it's very easy to kind of, most of America has what you call double R, like that United States of amnesia. Like they get tired of stuff very quickly. They want a new story very quickly. Like this has to keep going. People have to keep that same energy from July to August to September to October. And that's a long time, but quite frankly, that's what political operatives want you to feel. They want you to feel like, oh, you've done a great job. They because of what you said, Ricardo, they want you to chill. They want you to relax, because that group of people that always vote, that will sleep outside, they're going to vote. And if everybody else has their eyes turned somewhere else or is getting tired, then they'll get their way. So it's like that energy is so critical. I can't even underscore it enough.
I read something.
So do we have enough time?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was about to say, do we have enough time to deal with this whole Florida debacle before we get to November?
No.
Is the question.
No,
I don't believe so. Not with regard to felony voting. Again, the amendment still stands, but all the hurdles that they have, these logistical hurdles that they're running into, that they don't know how to implement the law, that BS is not going to be fixed before November. That's going to have to be a fight that they continue on. But what they can do in the interim is what they have to do here, which is just a lot of voter education. They have to literally help people figure out what paperwork they need to fill out, what documents they need to get in order, what proof they need to show to get them registered early, and get them like, all that civic education has to happen, and that's what a lot of activists in Florida will be doing. But the barriers to make it easier, those aren't coming down easy. They don't want the barriers to come down. They don't want voting to be easy. They don't want voting to be accessible. They don't want it to be quick, because they know that there's a certain group of people who don't care how hard it is. They'll do it anyway, and those are the people that they want to vote.
And that's the thing. Like every time you hear like somebody say, you know, it's not important, or like if it's so not important, then why are they creating all of these hurdles
and fighting to keep them and spending money? Like fighting these lawsuits, that takes money. They're spending money because they want to make sure that it's hard. Like there's a vested interest out here to make it hard.
Right.
Wait, but didn't they pass a law last year that allowed felons or people who have been in jail and are now out to vote?
It still stands. That? It just makes it difficult. It makes it more difficult if you don't have a physical address with your, like if you don't have a bill in your name. Because my cousin is a felon, and he don't have no bills in his name, but he live with his girl. He has an address. He can't vote,
right?
Because they don't have a way to track where you live. You could say that's your address, but in real life, you could be staying on the other side of town.
Yeah, another piece of it is when your sentence is over. When your sentence is over, it's not like you get a degree like my sentence is over. You don't. It just disappears. It's just done. So what I mean is like they're claiming, well, we don't know whose sentence is over. So you don't know whose sentence is over because you've never created a process to have like, okay, this person is done with their time.
Right.
So now they're like, well, we don't know how to make sure people can vote. So they're, again, more obstacles. Like we have something called the provisional ballot. You could let people file provisional ballots so that you can do the necessary work you need to do on the back end. I don't know why this is so hard. I really don't know why it's so hard to figure out who's done with their sentence and who isn't. Courts keep plenty of records, right? But like the process is they want people to go back to the same court they got sentenced in back in the 80s, back in the 90s, and get a piece of paper to sign off to prove that like that's what they're trying to make people do. And a lot of times people aren't living in the same county that they were in trouble in. So
yeah, you gotta go see the same judge and the same prosecutor, and they dead. So how you gonna get it signed?
It's a mess. It's a mess. If you still live in there, which you probably moved on with your life. But can we transition to this next topic because it's so important?
What? It better be Will and Jada.
Can we really get into it? Can we really get into
Oh
it?
my!
Because
who wants to go first?
I'll start.
You.
As possible. Look, if you really watch that interview, that Red Table Talk, if you listen to the emphasis that Will put on, no, I kicked you to the curb. No, I was done. Like he was very adamant about their relationship being over, and I think that's the piece that everybody is missing. Everybody's thinking like Jada just went out and cheated. No, Will was like, nah, bro, I'm straight. And Jada came back like, hold on though. And she brought August with her. Like, you know how like you find like a little puppy in the street and he hungry and real skinny and ain't nobody feeding him. He got the lashes on. Like, that's what it was. And they tried to nurture him and they put him in treatment programs. And because, he was on the pills bad, a bunch of people was just dying around him. So I understand it. But you go into a place and he ended up falling in love with somebody that was giving him attention. And nobody really want to speak to that point. Like, I seen a couple interviews where people were saying like they felt like Jada took advantage of him. I don't think that she took advantage, but I think that they both needed that. When you're not getting attention at home because your husband is one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, and he's not getting attention because all his people dead. And then y'all end up giving each other attention. Y'all end up sharing moments like that. The relationship starts to build, and she really just shut him down. Like, nah, this ain't what you think it is. And now he out here, and he been dedicating songs for the last 3 years to her. But Will was very adamant, and I believe that he said, I am going to get you back. And he meant it.
Oh, he's very serious about that.
He's so serious.
That Simone, you go. I want to hear yours. I'll reserve mine. You go.
Okay, I'll go ahead because I know somebody's gonna say something to just throw it the other way. But I'm really frustrated with some of the coverage of this on August Alsina's part. So like Refinery 29 is a really popular website. They were dissecting this situation. They said, even though people's love lives are none of their business, they said, quote, August Alsina's decision to speak on his experience was for his mental health. He suffered many traumas over the course of his life and chronic illnesses, and his separation from Jada was just like the tip of this iceberg. And he said, quote, this is affecting my life and my well-being, and I really have no choice but to express my truth. So that's where I have the biggest issue with this. Because I know in this generation right now, there's like a my truth and a your truth and a his truth and a her truth. But I wasn't brought up that way. I think what you're basically doing is speaking on somebody's bedroom. You're speaking on their body. You know what I mean? You're putting somebody out there like, if they're not ready to be out the closet and you drag them out the closet, that's disrespectful. So to me, I feel like it's a selfish act. And I feel like he really showed his age in this entire situation by even opening his mouth and opening that door because he's 20 something, right? He was a kid. He is a kid, but he was definitely a kid then. And in my mind, we've seen this situation so many times before. Somebody's young, they date somebody older, they feel like, oh man, this grown woman is giving me this level of attention. You just young, boy. You just young. Like feelings get hurt when you do that because you playing a game with somebody who's got way more cars than you. So there's no way for the situation to end. You're not equipped to really play this game. And so it's cute when it's cute, just like it's cute if there's like a 20-year-old girl and a 50-year-old man, but at the end of the day, he ain't sweating you. And I really feel like that's like a rule number one sort of a thing. I don't know how he didn't know that. I don't know why he thought he was special in that case. Like I really feel like he put people's business out there who have been doing a pretty good job of not speaking on it for decades. And now it's just out there. And to watch that interview was very painful for me because you see Will Smith, who's like, a surrogate virtual father figure, for me and for a lot of African Americans my age, like, and you see him sitting across this table like, messy ass.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah,
look
he
at
wanted
you,
to
you
give her the
guys
work.
sitting at this
He
table.
wanted to give, but
Look
he
at
said,
this, like basically, like, why couldn't you have been better with your NDAs or been better with, why'd you have to be messy with it? Because now I got to sit here. Your
well,
shit
he
then brought us here.
he
So
said,
that's what I got from that, and I feel that pain, and I believe
he
that was
said,
genuine.
I told you. He told her. He said, I told you. I told you.
So that's where I stand. I'm frustrated because I believe the community benefits. Go ahead.
I appreciate Will and Jada for being so transparent. I really do. I do because they did not have to do this.
I hear you.
They did not have to broadcast this for the whole world to see. One, I feel like this situation, they said it was years ago. And August just recently brought it back 4 years ago. And August just recently brought it back up. They have moved on. They are quote unquote stronger than they've ever been. August I said this before we started, August had an album that was coming out, publicity stunt. I feel as though if he wanted to say something for his mental health, I agree with Simone. He shouldn't have just said it. I feel like he should have went to them first and said, hey, I got an interview coming up and I want to speak on this. And he didn't even have to get their approval. I feel like he could have just told them so they could at least brace themselves because the internet shut down. As far as how I see them, this for sure makes me want to stop putting celebrity couples on a pedestal. Like everybody says, oh, Will and Jada are goals, or Jay-Z and Beyonce are goals. Now Quavo and Sweetie are goals. All of that is crap. Nobody's relationship is perfect, and it makes me not even want to get married. To be honest with you, I'm 25 and I have no
Ricardo?
aspirations to get married. Because bad marriage for life. What is that? No.
Wait, what? Whoa. Okay.
No.
So y'all have like this.
What do you say?
It's interesting to me that the three of y'all have three different outlooks on this. So that's really interesting because I thought at least two of y'all would be aligned. And I guess Simone and Kyle kind of are, but y'all kind of have three different outlooks on it. So I have a couple of things with this. Number one, and this kind of goes to Kyle. This is when controlling your narrative goes wrong. Like Will and Jada have been known for controlling their narrative. I'm starting to really hate the word transparency because that word is starting to have the same concept around it as being real did for a number of years. So they've been very transparent about the fact that they're pretty much in essence kind of swingers and they kind of do what they do and this is what it is. And from there, we kind of took it like, okay, well, you guys have this, I don't want the open marriage, but y'all are kind of fluid when it comes to including people or being all inclusive. Whatever you guys decide works for you at that season, you do it. And we took it and we kind of was like, okay, cool. Then Jada does the red table talk, which then turns her into kind of like an Ayanla. And people were just kind of like, well, wow, we didn't know Jada could do that. So now we're at this point where, okay, like you said, Jada's not perfect. And their marriage is not perfect. Now, when it comes to August, I'm just like, I agree with Simone, because it's like, okay, bro, this is not how we do things in an older generation. You don't just kind of throw stuff out there as pertains to the boudoir and think it's okay. Because now, not only have you destroyed other folks' lives in the meantime, now you put people in a position, and I think Derek said it, or maybe Simone, I agree. When you watch the interview with Will kind of has this look on his face like, so now I got to deal with this crap. Like, you did this, but now I got to be here to do. And he kind of said that on the red table when he was talking. He was like, well, so now it's out there, so now we kind of got to address it. So let's start here. On the other side, I also do feel like Jada's behavior was kind of predatory. You have adamantly said this young man came to you looking for help and that he needed X, Y, Z. She continuously says that. So how do you, and I understand what you're saying, Derek, but it's no different than when I had phase 2 and I had all these mentees and some of those mentees were attracted. They were younger than me, but they were attracted. What do I look like getting involved with them? Knowing they're in my charge to be taken care of and looked after. What do I look like getting involved with them? Now I understand what you're saying about how.
So what do you have to say, Derek? Like I haven't heard what Derek's had to say about that. What do you have to say about the power dynamic?
Look,
the power dynamic.
We can look at it as a power dynamic, but it's the same thing that when a powerful man meets a dancer. Like, I don't have to be here.
No.
I don't have to choose you.
No.
But in real life, when somebody somebody is made to feel better by making other people feel better, you see that both of them are broken. She didn't say that, but Jada is a broken person. And the last Red Table where Jada and Will spoke about their relationship, she said that. She said that Will's ambition to be the best in the world broke their relationship. And it broke her because she was left by herself. You got to remember, Willow was on tour, Jaden was on tour. When a woman that has been with a man that long and made to feel like we are the most powerful, and then Will is like, nah, I'm this. That's why she's doing Red Table.
But let me ask you this though. But let me ask you this before you go to the point about the dynamic, because what about the situation of like a counselor and a patient? Because a mental health counselor can lose their whole license if they call themselves getting romantic with the patient. Like, you're supposed to respect the idea that this person needs help. This person's a vulnerable person. So there's a boundary there for, you know, those ethical reasons.
Yeah, but you're talking about
and Jada changed the game.
Their job
but
is
Jada changed the game. Yes, but Jada changed the game when she started doing Red Table Talk, because then she kind of put herself in a space like Ayala and all of them where she's supposed to be helping people. And I understand that she's broken, but I mean, most of that do therapy and stuff, they have their own issues. But the point is, you don't get entangled with the people you're supposed to be helping. Point blank thinker. That's just what it is. So you say that August needed all this help and he was broken, and when he came to me and Will, you know, we want to help him. You don't get to have it both ways.
You don't get to help him with your pussies, what you don't get to do. You can't use your pussy to help that boy.
But I understand.
Really, come on.
I do understand. But we got to remember, Jada not Ayala. Her life isn't that. Like, when somebody's life work is to help people, that's something totally different. She just so happened to stumble into this because she was working on herself. And she said it. I'm working on making me better, and I met somebody that also wants to be better. Will was like, girl, I'm gonna jump off. I'm going to Budapest. And she was like, okay, so what I'm supposed to do? And August was like, I mean, I could sing to you. And then
Really?
That's
what you come up with?
Hey, look, I can't say what I really want to say. I'm keeping it PG right now.
Yeah, you better not. So okay, so here's my thing. If that's where we're gonna go with this. So here's the problem for me, because, and Kyle kind of said it when he was saying that you know, we kind of idolize couples, and I think we all understand why we do that, because we all really do want to believe in love, and we really do want to believe that for those of us, I would say myself, who know at some point we're going to be that big, we want to believe that love is possible and that we can be with somebody and be committed and we have the same level of ambition, all those things. So my concern with this is, when Jada and Will got together, I don't want to say they were equal career-wise, but Jada was doing her thing outright when she met Will. So to say that the dynamic has changed so dramatically that now she feels like she's left at home and can't do anything, that's an issue for me, because it's not like she can't. Jada Pinkett Smith, even if she didn't use Jada Pinkett, was a force to be reckoned with in her day. Hawthorne, I don't like Woo, but Hawthorne, Woo, you know, all these other things. And she just did Girl Trip a couple of years ago, which kind of propelled her back into the limelight. So to say that you felt left out when you are holding cards, that does not fly with me. That doesn't fly with me.
And she's a musician, and I love her music. But here's what I'll say too, is that, like, the reason why this really hurt me so much is because if you've ever been in a situation where there's been cheating, it's like, and it's a real relationship, let alone a marriage with that much built up into it. Cheating is almost like a cancer. So what happens is, like, it seeps into, like, the relationship, and then it just spreads and spreads and spreads, and, like, it becomes something that you always have to deal with. Like, you may be healed for like a couple months or years where it doesn't come up, and then all of a sudden it comes back up. Like, oh my God, like, now I gotta go back to treatment. And then maybe years pass by, everything's fine, and it can come back up. Like, it's like a wound that can kind of always reopen, and you really have to change. You have to change a lot to rebuild trust in a situation. When I was in a previous relationship, not my marriage now, and I was that person, and I was, you know, I wasn't Jada, because I would never mess with nobody that young. But when you're the cheater, you don't get to have a conversation with your partner about that person with such glowing reviews. Like, I was so upset listening to her talk about August Alsina and call him Og. and Og this and Og that. And I don't talk, me and Og haven't spoken in forever. And he's not a homewrecker. I want to make that clear. And,
Yes,
you know, well, I could see how he thought it was permission. I could see that, like, Og, like, are you still messing with this little kid? Like, why are you referring to him like that? Like, when you do that.
She was just a little boy in him. She was hitting him with the little boy, like, hey, little boy. Hey, little boy. Like, that's what it felt like.
Will tried to make a joke in the beginning and say, like, I feel like the politician's wife who's going to the press conference to say, I'm gonna stick by my mate and you're supposed to admit your transgressions. And she said, well, it's not really a transgression. It's just, it's part of the journey. I don't even consider it a transgression. You need to consider it it's a transgression. It's a sin. Now, it's a problem. It's a bad thing to do.
Now
and I just felt like she was way too light about the whole thing and talk about some entanglements. You was smashing this little boy. That's not like, be real and don't sugarcoat it and make it sound all spiritual when it was just sex, and you are pushing 50. And maybe it felt good to your ego that this 20-year-old was messing with you, just like it does in the reverse. When a man is 45 and 50 and he starts kind of, you know, and the little 20-year-old is looking at him, it makes him feel good. It makes him feel young again. So just keep it.
Man, look, she had fun with that little boy.
That's all it was. It's just fun.
She had fun.
Are we really gonna go here? My problem. Okay.
Keep it on.
That's a given. That's a given. Clearly, she was enjoying herself. Clearly, she told her ego. That's a given.
Cheating, Ricardo. That's not how you handle cheating.
But I personally don't look at it like that. I don't look at it like that because Will said I kicked you to the curb. Like, we broke. Now, granted, they're married, so breaking up not easy like that. Because I meet married couples on a regular basis. There's no way that we can break up and you still live in this house. It don't work like that. They lived in the same house. Mm-hmm. And the problem, this is the thing that made Jada's side look a little way. Y'all brought this boy in the crib. He was in the crib.
Right.
He was now in real life, I believe that in real life, Will really want to do that man dirty. But because he Will Smith, he can't even do him like that. And because their relationship is open, which I don't believe, I don't think
it is clearly.
I don't think that their relationship is open. I think that they might have fun with some cool. You want to have fun with somebody like that? Cool. The swinger thing, I don't believe that, but I do think that they be just out here having fun in these streets, and they put them MDAs on the paper on the table and get them signatures. But in this case, she had fun with this little boy, and he ain't signed that.
He's emotional.
And he fell in love. He wanted to be Pretty Woman, and she was like, "No, I'm straight."
Really?
We're gonna keep it.
I agree.
That man said, I was torn apart. He said, I was torn apart. He said, I'm still struggling with being better. She got you better. And then she was just like, all right, I'm straight. Like,
I can't feel sorry for him in that, though. I don't feel sorry for him when he said that. I mean, how could you possibly think, even if she says me and Will are done, I would not but let myself believe that I am about to come in between Will and Jada or any married couple. I can't let him.
Thank you, Kyle.
I feel bad.
Especially Will Smith. I'm August Alsina. I got one hit. Will Smith's worst movie is better than my one hit. I can't compete.
Let me just ask you, Ricardo, because you keep saying, you said that, we knew they were swinging. I hear that from a few people, and I don't understand why they're saying that, because we knew what the rumors were, and we knew what people had said, and we knew maybe in the back of our minds, but they never addressed, they weren't on the cover of that Essence magazine saying, oh, we're open. They've never said that. They've always had like a strategic way of presenting themselves, and they've never been like, oh yeah, we do all things, all types, all kinds. They've never said that. So I feel like this is a very big deal that somebody opened their mouths like this. And it's also a big deal that they just went ahead and just admitted to it, because they've never done that before. They never felt the need to, with these rumors. So to me, it's like, clearly they weren't open.
Well, it's a handwriting on the wall type situation. Whenever you saw Will and Jada talking, they were very, especially Will, he was very, what's the word? He was, I don't want to say open, but he was not closed about how fluid they are with their relationship. So, you know, you can kind of denounce from that. It's just kind of like they just always seem to be very fluid, and they always spoke to that terminology. I think what I'm wrestling with now is, especially now that you said what you said about, or maybe it was Derek saying about how Jada felt like, you know, she was left home and so on and so forth, and about Will's ambition. You know, for me as somebody who is an ambitious individual in media, it makes me concerned because I'm like, well, Dag, is this going to always be the price of ambition? The fact that I want to be better for myself, the fact that I want to go the distance, the fact that I want to achieve the purpose in my life, does it become that serious to the point where it will cost me everything? Like, that's how I'm viewing this right now. I'm like, you know, Will has done everything in his power to be the best, and he is the best. He married a woman who, when he married her, she was the best, and she still has a name. It may not be like Will's name, but she still is Jada Pinkett, and people recognize who she is. So the fact that I can't even marry somebody that when we get married, we're on the same level, and we can't stay on that level or find ways to equalize each other, it's like, well, Dad, you just can't win when it comes to a partner if you're ambitious. That's a problem for me.
No.
Like, how is that fair to win?
This is, and I would ask this to Simone because she's married, but there is a clear difference between being alone, like my husband or wife is on the road and they're working and they're a breadwinner, and I am doing my thing, and my husband and wife is on the road and I'm lonely. And I think that without using the words, I think she's used it before in a different Red Table Talk, but Jada was lonely. And I think that when you force your partner in a relationship to be lonely, it leaves doors open for certain things to happen because they'll try to fill that void. They'll try to get that attention so they don't feel lonely. I'm not saying that it's right, but I am saying that even in regular relationships that happen, it just so happens that she's married to one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. So we look at it like it's different.
But she knew that when she married Will, and I don't think it's fair.
But people do change. People do change, and things do change, and maybe it's different when, you know, it's been 20 years of the same thing. I mean, it doesn't hit you the same 20 years later as it does after 1 or 2 or 3 years. It may still be cute.
But
Jada said that in their last year.
It happens. It happened. I think you're right. I think you're right. I think you're right. I think that happens. And you can, when you're lonely in a marriage, it's different than being lonely when you're single, because in a marriage you just assume that won't happen. You expect that won't be the case. And so,
right.
but what I will say is, though, that they forgot to play defense. You have to play defense in relationships. It's like, and over time, I do think maybe they just forgot to play defense. But the fact that she said that Will and her let him in to their lives, it's like, you don't bring another queen in a castle. You don't bring another king in a castle. One queen, one castle.
He ain't no king. He a little boy.
You don't do that. I don't even, and even to the extent that, like, that person doesn't have to be hurting, or you don't have to be hurting, even if everything is peachy. Like, my homegirls, they don't spend the night here, right? Like you don't, one queen, one castle. I just feel like they also opened the door. They did, if it was both of them, for something bad to happen.
It was just her. It was just her. Because
she said they.
Will said it. Will said that when we brought this little boy to that, he said little boy. When we brought this little boy home, I was trying to help him. Anything that you did outside of help that we established, that's on you.
And he shouldn't have done it. But he shouldn't have done it.
You're right. I don't argue with that. But some people are like that. That they try to help everybody. And this is the reason, and this has been brought up about Will Smith before, this is the reason why Will has never been like a social life until now on social media. But he has never been like the dude at the party or going to hang out with people, or he's never been that guy. And now we're starting to see why. Because if it's that easy for me to feel like, dang, I want to help you. Dang, I want to help put you. Dang, I'm going to bring you to the house. I'm going to introduce my kids. Because we forget, Willow is 25, 24, something like 20 something.
It was like 19, 20 something.
One of them is 20,
like mid
20 something. I know his oldest son is 27. So imagine you coming home and August Alsina sitting at the table, like, and your mama say, "Oh yeah, you know, we helping him. We're getting ready to take him to treatment." Your dad, like, "Yeah, we trying to help the young man. We trying to," and all behind the scenes, mom getting them rocks off, cause young boy, you know what I'm saying? He's singing her to sleep. Like, we really got to be honest about that thing.
I'm done with you. I'm done with you in this. This is my ending point on this. I don't feel like, I hear what everybody's saying, but in this scenario, it's not like Jada is some housewife who has no skill set and no name. So for you to say, I felt lonely when there are so many options around you because you are Jada Pinkett, that's just, she's not the average housewife.
But you're talking about professional and personal. Just because she has professional opportunities don't mean she's not lonely.
No, but I just feel like there was another way. I still feel like it boils down to the price for ambition. And I feel like this price is too high for the ambition that Will has, and I don't think it's fair. I just don't. I'm done with it. What we got left, it makes me wonder, like, Dad, when I get to where I'm going, is this the price I'm going to pay?
You're going to have to prioritize your household, Ricardo. You got to prioritize your household. You cannot play games. You cannot think, oh, I'm going to just focus on work and not my marriage. It will crumble. You can't do that.
I don't do stuff like that anyway. You know, if I have,
I'm not ready.
I don't do that now.
They're ready.
Well, I'm glad you're not ready, Kyle, but marriage is good, and you need to get married. Listen, Kyle,
I believe it's
this
good.
is what pisses me off, Ricardo, is because we need them as a community. Like, they were beneficial to the Black community. They were beneficial. I don't care what was going on behind closed doors. They were beneficial to see. I know white people that look up to them as like, so we like, that was good. That was good for us. And I don't like this younger generation getting this idea that like, oh, bad marriage for life, if that's all I can have, I just don't need to, like, no, Kyle, you get married to the darkest woman you can. You get married to her, and you don't cheat. I'm not playing, because listen, Rich Kyle, my little young little brother, my educated Rich Kyle, I need you to marry a black woman, but black woman, but
that's for sure.
Marry her and be good to her. And don't get that impression.
Oh, you about black love. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. So one thing I didn't bring up that I do want to talk about, that I do kind of want to get into, is COVID and mental health. So this morning, Tamar Braxton committed suicide, and she was rushed to the hospital, and I think she's
Wait, hold on. Tamar Braxton is dead?
Well, she didn't die. I mean, she attempted suicide. I think she overdosed.
Oh.
So she, I forgot, my bad about the wording. She attempted suicide.
That's not cool.
I was about to say,
she attempted suicide, and the last time I checked, she was in 72-hour hold, so on and so forth. And the headlines were saying COVID related, being home in your thoughts, and it just kind of being you and your thoughts. And sometimes those thoughts are so. I'm just saying. So
I don't believe that.
What do we? What don't you believe?
Look, Tamar Braxton, you could tell by her face, all that stuff she's been doing, she's going through something. Because you don't keep touching your face like that. Like, there's something deeply rooted, and they've talked about it before. There's something deeply rooted in her that she needs to deal with. And I don't think that COVID is the reason, because she's been doing this before. This ain't her first suicide attempt. This is the first one that became national news, but this ain't her first suicide attempt. And it's I don't like that, like, people that they want to blame this on COVID. Like, if you was going through something before this, don't blame it on COVID because now you by yourself. Like, it's not one of those, this not that. Like,
I'm not saying her and she was blaming on COVID. I'm just saying the ideology, and if you really think about it, because me and somebody had a conversation about this, when you really think about it, a lot of us are used to living a life where we're really not home. Those of us who are really professionals, really doing stuff, we're usually gone. Even if you have kids. The kids are gone all day, you're running, you're ripping, you're running. You really don't see each other till that night, and that's barely 3 or 4 hours, and then you get up and you're doing it again. COVID has put a lot of us in a place where now we're home, and we have thoughts, and now we had to deal with demons we've been running from because, our professions has kept us busy, or life has kept us busy, and now we don't have that luxury. So a lot of people had to deal with demons and voices they've been trying to outrun. So I think it does make
And her
a
divorce
difference.
was just finalized last year.
Yeah, like she's
well, and
lonely. Lonely. Like we gotta start using that word.
oh,
When the emotionally unstable people do not do well when they're forced to be alone. She's already emotionally unstable. She was lonely in her marriage because he wasn't there and he was good on her. He left. He was like, "No, I'm straight. I'm leaving." And then they split and it seemed to be amicable, but it wasn't. He left. Her relationship is over. So now
Yeah,
what do you
but
do? Force.
I'm careful with this though, Derek, because this is a lot to consider because she has a physical issue. I don't remember what it is. I'm not talking about her skin condition, but she has like an actual health issue. I think with regard to her lungs. Like
well,
I think
she
she
had
has.
That's the
blood.
reason why she can't
Yeah,
perform.
so I mean, when you're talking about like an overdose, you'd be surprised how accidental those can be. Like I mean, just from research alone, that people do because as your health changes, as you have a health condition, the medication you're used to taking can become way too much for you. And I just think it's even kind of, I just think you got to be careful to even kind of speculate whether she's down or not. That like, I do remember in 2018 when she shaved her head, she addressed this and she said everybody was like, "Girl, are you okay? Because you shaved your head," and everybody's like, you know, that's like a anyway, so but I hope that if it is mental that she can deal with it, but it may not be. I still feel like, you know, how do we know it's not a physical situation?
But I think the scary part for me is because Tamar, she has a show that's on VH1, something about hairdressing, and she actually is getting ready to have a show coming out on I think called Get Your Life. My fear with this, and we talked about this like last year, we were talking about suicide and how it's hard to really tell how on the edge people are when it comes to people being on social media. You know, one would think the fact that she has 2 shows coming out, you know, she has her sisters, they have Braxton Family Values. One would think if you watch her, not behind the scenes, but just if you watch her, that everything's good. Just to watch her, you know, she's on Instagram and stuff, living her best life, being Tamar. You know, how do we, and we talk about this all the time with social media, how do we really gauge where people are? Like how on edge people really are? Because in the old days, you know, you could watch somebody's behavior, but, you know, oh, you know, you might want to keep an eye on him in the old days because, you know, you just could. Now it's like you don't even know because you can put on a social media mask and be doing great from day to day, and behind the scenes you cutting your wrist. Like
That's true.
I don't know how we. It's a scary place to be in. Like I said, she has 2 shows. Well, 3 if you count Braxton Family Value. She has 3 shows. You know, she has Logan. To watch her on her social media, you think she's good, and then to wake up today and to see the headlines saying that, you know, she attempted suicide was just like, whoa, like, wow.
Yeah.
I feel like going back to what Ricardo was saying earlier, when COVID first started, because I'm a person, I bury myself, I make myself busy. Especially like when I'm going through something, I'm always just like purposely making myself busy so I don't have to deal with something. So I ended up going through a breakup in March. That's the peak of COVID. Like I was furloughed from my job, went through a breakup, all that. And like I was sitting here, I quarantined for like 3 weeks and I was just in my thoughts. And like, I mean, I just got to know myself a little bit better. And I feel like, I came out okay on top, but I feel like for some people like Tamar, it may weigh heavy on them. You know what I mean? And I feel like mental health, especially in the Black community, as we all know, is something to be taken seriously. But I do wish her the best, and I hope this is not, because I didn't know she had a show coming out. I hope this is not a stunt, but just saying.
Well, the issue is they were saying that the show, she's not happy with her contract with WeTV. That was one. Number 2, they were saying that what pushed her over the edge was she didn't know they were going to release a trailer for Get Your Life, and I guess they released that today, and she's not happy with her contract. So I think it was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Plus, I don't know why. Every time I turn around, there's a new headline about Tamar Braxton and The Real. That happened like 3 or 4 years ago. Why are we still talking about that? Because she's not talking about it.
She
So
tweeted something. She tweeted that tweet that said like, "Yo, it's about to get real."
Because she can't
let everybody to believe.
Right.
She can't say
going
the
back to The Real.
Hey, look, I'm gonna let y'all have this. I gotta go back and get on this call.
All right.
I wish y'all the best. I'm gonna talk to y'all later.
You too. Go. You looking like Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, man. I gotta go back in the call.
Hey, look great.
All right.
All right.
But so because Tamara Mowry is leaving The Real, right? Which shocked everybody. Like, I can't believe that. They were like, and she said it's about to get real. I was like, I as well thought for a moment, well, maybe she's going back to The Real. Because Lonnie and Jeannie and Adrian aren't going to be carrying the whole show, are they?
I say throw the whole.
I mean, I don't. I'm with Kyle. Like, I don't even know how they last this long. I don't know how they last this long. The show is god awful. Like, I don't.
First of all, it's not for men anyway, so. I mean, it's not. I'm not a huge fan of the show.
No, that's not fair because I love The View. Y'all know I'm a View person. This show is kind of patterned like The View. I love The View. So, but I just feel like these little spin-offs of having women.
Well, The Real is not like The View though, because The View is more political and The Real is more relational and personal. And like, I mean, The Real, and the reason why I'm not a huge fan is because I think they have a very specific audience and they don't talk about it, but it's like, normally it doesn't matter to me, but a lot of their stuff is just not for me to watch anyway. Like, it's a lot, I think it's for straight women. And I hate to say that, but it's like, they talk about like, you know, I mean, they talk about dick a lot. You know, and they talk about like, so it's just not for me, but it's just not for me. But anyway, I do believe that the three of them is going to be like a weird dynamic and they should probably have another one. So I would have been excited if Tamar went back. I'm not saying she needs to go back, but I would have been excited because she was dope in the first place. I didn't want her to leave in the first place.
I hate you. I don't think I've ever hated you more in this moment than that last.
You have been on one today. I love it.
Sorry.
She's like Simone Unleashed today. I'm just like, is COVID getting to you? What is happening right now?
It must be the COVID. It must be the pandemic.
I've been shocked. My mouth has been open secretly behind the scenes all day today for the stuff you said. Like, you be talking about me. No, you've been wilding out all day today. Which brings me to the next point. Nick Cannon.
Oh.
I stand with Nick.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Nick.
Okay.
I gotta hear. I think it's why. First of all, I'm not clear on exactly what he said. However, from what I do understand what he said, he told no lies. And for him to lose his job behind it, and you know, I just think it's unfair because he spoke. He said how he felt about Jews, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was talking about blacks being the original people. If you look up like the Black Hebrew movement, it is like a movement. It's considered a Black nationalist movement. It's not considered to be traditional Judaism, but you know, the movement of African Hebrews who have, even in Israel, wanted to be legitimized as true Hebrews and true Jews, and faced a lot of hurdles in some cases because they couldn't prove it. But Genesis 28, I think, is the kind of the origin of this belief. At least it supports it. And essentially in Genesis 28, they discuss what's going to happen to the Israelites, which were God's first people. And a lot of the things that were supposed to happen to them as far as being enslaved, as far as being ruled over, as far as losing fathers in their homes, a lot of that seems to trace the pattern of Africans, not just in America, but like throughout the diaspora and what we've suffered in other countries. And so there's a big, very prominent belief that, you know, that blacks are the original peoples, which would make us the Israelites. And that's what he was talking about. And they, you know, they discussed him having anti-Semitic comments. So I thought
that was common knowledge that
the
Bible. I'm just saying.
Well, I think it was more than that though, because when I listened to some of the interview, I didn't even hear the Jew part. I heard him talking about white people, and he was pretty much saying how they rape, pillage, and destroy, and how black folks kind of have this uncanny ability to be the better race. That's kind of what I got from it when I listened. So I think that was the issue. The fact that he was talking about white folks saying they rape, pillage, destroy, and he kind of said it outright, and he didn't take down. I think that's what the issue is. Now,
so he offended white supremacists, basically.
No, I don't think it's that. I think that on the podcast, he was not as bipartisan as he should have been when he made that level of comment. I think that's the issue. Because what happens is, okay, you got white supremacists over here, whether they be outright or using undertones, saying the white race is the best race. And you punish them. Because if you don't, social media is going to drag you. So you're forced to punish them, whether you believe or not, whether you side with them or not. You're forced to punish them. Now, on the opposite side, you got a black man who is the executive over
producer.
Nickelodeon. wilding out, all these things. Now you have him saying, well, the black race is the best race, and white folks only want to pillage, rape, and steal, and history has shown it, plus this Jewish thing. So it kind of puts the executives in a place to say, okay, we won't allow white supremacists to say these kinds of things. So is it really fair for us to let Nick Cannon say these kinds of things, even in the climate that we sit in now? I kind of get it. I really do. I kind of get it. Because I heard the interview. Nick was kind of going in. I get it. So I can't say that. I mean, canceling his show was a bit much, but I think what's going to happen to Wild 'N Out is the same thing that happened to Roseanne when they abruptly canceled Roseanne and they came back around and was like, well, no, we don't want to punish the whole crew of Roseanne, so we'll just get rid of Roseanne, but we'll bring back the show. What was the name of that show? The Connors. We'll rename it, revamp it, and we'll bring it back because we don't want to punish the crew for something that the lead character did. I think that's what will happen with Wild 'N Out. They may rebrand it, they may put somebody else in charge, but then I also saw that Nick issued an apology.
Mm-hmm.
So
he's going to be learning and doing some learning around it. Yeah. I mean,
I understand with.
I was going to say, all I'll say is that for the last couple of years, I feel like Nick has been on some pretty radical stuff anyway. So, I mean, he may have gone into way more detail than normal, but I kind of feel like he's been saying this for a couple of years, especially since he's had his own podcast, his own platform, and he's definitely been tweeting kind of similar things. So I feel like, I think the climate is interesting, again, because we have a lot of people, denouncing racism against Black Americans and against Africans right now and against natives. And so although Jews, are Israeli people, in America anyway, they typically identify as white. And so, very rarely do we kind of see the reverse charge in which, we're discussing, white people, at the end of the day, taking the short end of the stick as it pertains to racism. That the climate and the timing is interesting. I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it wouldn't have been as surprising. But again, I think in this climate, we've been really focused on Black Lives Matter. We've been really focused on being anti-racist. And so now I think this is the beginning of us kind of saying, okay, well, how far does this go? Right? Like, are we trying to focus on groups that we believe are being attacked right now? Or are we going to just decide in every single direction? And I'm not saying that Jews face a lot of Semitic attacks, not just remarks, but like action. So that's real and that's undeniable, period. But we're not necessarily having the same conversation when we talk about white colonizers who have taken land and who have raped and who have destroyed villages. We're not talking about the same group of people necessarily when we talk about Jews, when we talk about Israel, when we talk about creationism, really. I think they're two different conversations. So I think they got convoluted in this podcast. And what I will say is that I think is unfortunate, Nick does tend to convolute subjects in general. When I've heard him speak, he tends to talk about multiple things and he seems like he's got a million different ideas going on. And a lot of times he will get confused. I feel like this is probably avoidable, but for you to be having the same conversation about those two very distinct time periods, first of all, like thousands of years BC versus who we know white colonizers to be, 2020, 1500s, like how are you even having the same conversation? I think he probably it doesn't sound to me like it was a coherent one.
Well, I think Nick's a little idiot too. I'm gonna be honest, because he was the same fool out here not even 2 months ago talking about holding the black vote. So let me get this straight. We have a hard enough time trying to get Black people to vote in general. And you come out here with a sign, he was in Atlanta, and you come out here with a sign saying we should hold the black vote? Are you serious right now? Are you serious?
I remember, yeah.
So
yeah.
I kind of checked out and I was like, that makes no sense. And I think P. Diddy followed him up with that foolishness. And I'm just like, so you'd rather tell Black folks not to vote at all?
Yeah, he said he doesn't believe in the government or voting, and yeah.
Now, granted, I have thought about this a lot. I do think that the Democratic Party has done us a disservice lately with the candidates that they've allowed to be. If you do the research on Joe Biden, which I'm not gonna lie, the Trump campaign is really killing him right now with showing him in one of the chambers making these statements about Black folks that they were able to find. I don't think that Biden. A lot of us did not know that Biden had that history of being that guy. I can't say that I did. We only know him really from being with Clinton. Being with Obama. So a lot of us just kind of thought he was a decent person from being the wingman for Obama. Oh, he has a lot of things that he said. Simone, do you know offhand?
Just the recent comments, just
extent,
recently, with regard to whether or not people are black if they vote for him, and then him
I heard
saying the
about
N-word
that.
a little while ago, and but
well,
that's
no,
recent
the
stuff.
the stuff, yeah, recent, but the stuff that they pulled from back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
he was making all kind. I can't look him up, but he was making all kind of comments that I was kind of like, whoa, he really said that, like about black folk in particular. And I think about crime and stuff like that, and
Oh,
kind of connecting the two to that capacity. And I was just like, wow. So I do feel like the Democratic Party has done us a disservice with the people they've allowed to use the Democratic platform to say they're representing us. And I think that in a time space that we're in, letting Biden be the main guy that's going to go up against Trump, like
that's
when you
not what
really
Nick is
do
on
the due
about.
diligence on,
But that's
well,
not
no,
what Nick is
I'm
on
just saying
about.
in general,
Yeah.
to something else. But yeah, when it came to Nick talking about holding black vote, and I think he was saying something like having better people be representing us, or something to that extent. I think that's what he was alluding to. I get it, but
Well,
just the fact he's gonna hold the vote.
are you familiar with what Hotep is?
The who?
Hotep, H-O-T-E-P.
No.
I know it's an Egyptian word, but essentially it's like it's a movement, and it's a rise of movement, and Hoteps are deployed in black communities. Like it's a, for some people it's considered like a black nationalist movement, but it's essentially, I mean, you got to look it up, but that's what Nick has been associated with. And he doesn't believe in government, period. He doesn't believe in voting, period. And he said that on several occasions, because he just believes that the government is just corrupt and that there should be no government. It's not the same thing as black separatists, but it's along those same lines of this idea that like there can be no government if there's ever going to be peace. There just has to be people. That's a society that I think that he would find the most ideal. I don't think that has anything, to do with Democrat or Republican, because in his mind, there'd be no system, period. There'd just be no system. Or the system that would exist would not be one. Right.
Oh, good Lord. He's reminding me of Kanye when Kanye had that whole spell where he was just rambling and just kind of doing things. He reminds me of that.
Exactly.
Like, I feel like
that's why I feel like he's probably in hot water, is because however he came to some of the comments that he made, he probably came to them because he was just freeballing. He was just on the microphone, just freeballing. And this has been a really enlightening experience for a lot of people as well, in terms of like celebrities waking us up and revealing who they are, because without the cameras and without the press team and without the PR statements, celebrities have really been kind of showing us a lot of who they are. And I hope it's kind of helped people understand that they ain't all the brightest stars in the sky. They ain't all the most composed individuals. And everybody ain't qualified to speak on everything.
They are just
because
talented.
we love somebody doesn't mean you can give them a microphone and tell them to go ahead, because they may disappoint you. And everybody has a voice. Everyone has a right to have a voice. I believe in that, period. I believe in that. But to the extent that these voices are going to be as impressive as like the lines we've heard them read in the past, probably not. They're probably not going to be those people.
I'm just concerned. I think that, and somebody was talking about this, I saw a Facebook post about it, that COVID and this whole debacle has really allowed people to really be who they are. And like you said, now we're seeing, this is like, wow, you really are that dumb in real life. Like this is really who you are. You're really just dumb in real life. You're really just ignorant in real life. It's amazing. It's foolishness. But I digress. So I think we covered everything on the table today.
Yeah.
Anybody got any final thoughts, anything they want to say or bring up, Kyle?
I will say, if you have had corona and you have recovered, I think it's important that you donate blood, because your plasma, they need it. They need your blood. And for people who are, fighting it and, are closer to death. So I think that's important. I read that in an article the other day.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Same thing. Wear your masks. Well, similar thing. Wear your masks and vote August 11th.
All right. So on next Friday, we will be having an in-depth conversation about immigration with attorney Elizabeth Garbish and Amna Shazari. Check the website, rightscommunity.com, Rights with a W, to find out more about that. That Monday, we're going to have finally Linda Chapman, who is a grant writer. She has the company Contracts and Grants, and her company helps people write grants the right way. So she'll be here dispelling a lot of the rumors, a lot of the myths about grant writers, what they charge, how should they charge, as well as talking about how to get a grant for an independent filmmaker, if that's what you want to do. So she'll be talking about how to get grants in entertainment, which is something I've never heard. So she'll be here that following Monday. So it's going to be really interesting time. And thank you, Kyle, for being in with the Blend family conversation. Shouts out to
Always.
Double R.
Always.
Yeah, we will see you guys next Friday, same time, same place, on the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo.